Romance anime that involve a girl teasing a boy are all the rage these days, from Takagi to Uzaki to Nagatoro. But now that this formula is so common, what can be done to spice the genre up? Well, how about the ever-looming threat of instant death? That's what JC Staff brings to the table in The Duke of Death and His Maid, known in Japanese as Shinigami Bocchan to Kuro Maid. The Duke of Death is a show airing during the summer 2021 anime season, and it's flying under the radar for a lot of people. It follows a young duke who's been cursed by a witch to kill everything he touches, so he's been sent away to a private mansion with only one maid and one butler to take care of him. The maid, Alice, constantly teases him by getting as close to him as possible and making romantic advances without any regard for her safety. Before I go into what the show does well, I want to clear up a few misconceptions about it that I think turn people off of it. The first is that people see that the show has CG animation and they assume it will be bad as a result. That's not the case at all. For the most part, the CG is pretty unobtrusive and doesn't look overly unnatural. Did the show need to be CG? Definitely not. Are there some shots that look weird or bad blends with 2D backgrounds? Yes. But since The Duke of Death isn't an action anime, there aren't many complex motions needed, so you don't see any cartoonishly bad CG fight sequences that other anime get heavily criticized for. I think CG, if it's decent like it is here, can work perfectly fine in a romance/slice-of-life setting. After an episode, I was already used to it, and I think the character designs are polished and attractive. The second misconception people have about The Duke of Death is that they think it's just an ecchi anime. Alice is always revealing her legs or parts of her chest or getting within an inch of kissing the Duke, but things haven't gone any further than that in the first 5 episodes at least. I still probably wouldn't watch this show in public, but it's not like the characters are getting naked all the time. There's one scene so far where Alice is naked for about 1 second, but everything is covered. And of course, since the Duke can't touch Alice without killing her, there's obviously no weird groping going on. Rather than functioning just as fan service, the slightly lewd parts of the show help to develop the romantic intimacy between the two characters. Since the Duke and Alice can't physically touch, she gives him the next best thing by getting as close to him as possible and letting him see more of her than other people do. And while she does this in a teasing manner, it's not mean-spirited at all. In fact, the Duke is so afraid of getting near other people that he would never approach Alice like that closely on his own. It's only by her taking the initiative and flirting with the possibility of death that the two of them are able to have such intimate moments. And I think that's a good segue to talk about the first thing that The Duke of Death and His Maid does really well, which is the romantic dynamic between the Duke and Alice. This show is completely different from most romance anime in that the two main characters openly admit that they are in love with each other right from the start. They are blatant and honest with each other, which I think is really refreshing in the midst of shows that have misunderstanding after misunderstanding and only build up to a confession after multiple seasons. By having the characters in love from the start, there's much less of an obstacle to intimacy, and the characters can work toward the goal of bringing their relationship as close as possible, both romantically and physically, rather than trying to establish one to begin with. The second thing I like about this show is that the plot doesn't rush. Since this is a spoiler-free review, I won't be giving any specific details, but essentially the Duke's goal is to break the curse on him. However, we only get a tiny bit of progression toward that in each episode. Instead, the main focus is on the slice-of-life elements and the budding romance between the Duke and Alice. It's a very character-driven approach that makes me care about everyone involved. And honestly, the personal interactions, like the Duke and Alice dancing without touching, are a lot more captivating than any of the magical elements in the show. The pacing makes me wonder if the whole story will be covered during the season though, as I find it hard to see how the plot could be resolved in 12 episodes based on how slowly it's going so far. The other thing I really like about The Duke of Death and His Maid is the characters. The Duke starts off very timid due to his fear of hurting others, but Alice's teasing begins to bring him more and more out of his shell. Alice is a perfect picture of devotion, and the methods she uses to keep getting close to the Duke are often inventive and adorable. But the main couple are not the only characters in the show, and the side characters actually may be more nuanced. You get to see how various members of the Duke's family, as well as former friends, act toward him when they visit or talk about him from afar. Some fear him and are disgusted by him, others pity him, and some treat him as a normal person. When these characters arrive, you get a look into not only their feelings and motives, but also how they impact the politics of the show behind the scenes. The narrative slowly fits together more and more with each new edition. I'd also like to highlight that The Duke of Death and His Maid has great music. There's a very nice classical soundtrack and a lot of piano music because the Duke plays the piano. The Duke will sing little songs from time to time too. I'm also a big fan of the opening song, which is a light rock tune that features the Duke and Alice singing a duet with each other. Let's finish by talking about the voice cast. The Duke is played by Natsuki Hanai, who you might recognize as Tanjiro from Demon Slayer, Kosei from Your Lie in April, or Takumi from Shokugeki no Soma. Alice's voice actress is relatively new to the scene with only a few minor roles under her belt, like Natsumi from Date Alive. Despite this, she still gives a really compelling performance. And there's also another big star on the cast, Inori Minase, known for roles like Rem, Hestia, and Itsuki Nakano. In all, if you're put off by the CG or lewd elements in The Duke of Death and His Maid, I'd encourage you to give it a chance anyway. It's a really unique romance show with good writing, quality music and voice acting, and compelling characters. So far, I'd give it at least a 7 out of 10, but it has the potential to go higher. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing for weekly content. I'm Matrix from Matrix AM, Anime, and more, and I hope you have a great day.